James Potter, Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, False Breath, and the Prisoner of Azkaban by gonzoclock. Chapter 9. Peter tries to sleep as a human person in his own bed. He really does. It's just he can't. Not after everything that's been going on. And it doesn't help that Sirius's little meltdown has really fucked with Peter's sleep schedule. Peter loves the guy, of course he does, but Sirius has always been prone to the dramatics, which means he responds the best to dramatics too. Peter should really get around to apologizing to Professor Lupin for breaking that mug. Nah, the professor probably understands. What Peter should actually get around to doing is figuring out if his mother is still alive. The problem with that is, well, Peter's not sure he's ready for that kind of suffocation. Older him has been dead for 12 years now. If Pete's mum is still alive and sees him again, as he is now, he'll never escape her. Not that that's a bad thing, just there's no rush at all. Rib gives a little rat sigh and climbs out from where he's been curled up under the pillow. It's no use. There's no way he's getting to sleep tonight. It's his own fault, really. The others had stayed up late working out the details for their nice Slytherin prank for the third night in a row. And Remus had broken out some black tea. As a werewolf, he has a really high tolerance for caffeine. Sirius had abstained. Caffeine puts James right to sleep, and Pete, well, he thought one cup couldn't hurt. He'd been wrong, of course, and now it's close to 3 in the morning. Wormtail does a little stretch, then scampers over to the edge of the bed and climbs down. If he's not going to get to sleep, he might as well wander around. He wants to see what's changed in the last 20 years. Remy has just barely stepped outside of the dorm when he freezes, heart beating quickly. There, just down the hall, is a giant orange thing. It's staring underneath the door to a different dorm, tail lashing. It's growling too, and Wormy wants nothing more than to turn tail and run far, far away. Instead, he takes a careful step forward. This isn't the first time Wormtail has encountered a cat, and it won't be the last. The trick is to transform before they manage to leap on you and snag a spine. Wormy takes one slow step at a time, until he's right behind the thing. He holds his breath and keeps moving. The cat doesn't so much as twitch an ear. Now that he's closer, Wormtail recognizes the cat as belonging to that Hermione Granger girl, James's son's friend. Yuck, James's son. Peter doesn't like thinking about it, because the idea of James, any version of him, being responsible for another life form is terrifying at best. It could be worse, of course. The kid could have taken more after James and not Lily. Then there would have been 2 of them. Wormtail suppresses a little rat shudder. Peter really, really loves his friends. Loves having them around. He would do anything for them. It's just, he's sort of hit his limit as far as interpersonal relationships go. It's not hard, really, but Peter does have to remind himself to be a good person pretty much all of the time. It's not that he's a bad person, not at all. It's just, well, Pete had figured out he wasn't like the other kids really early on, when he'd snapped a bird's neck just to see what would happen, see if it might do something about the ever-crushing boredom. The neighborhood kids had been scared and disgusted, so little Pete had stopped doing stuff like that. Easy peasy. He even stopped the little things, like squashing a bug or pushing someone over just to laugh at them. Once he'd known there was a line, it was easy to swear, hurting things and people off forever. But that had been weird too. That made him stick out just as bad as hurting little animals for no reason had. So he'd started watching, taking note of how the others acted. Little violences were okay, encouraged even. Kids, even the normal ones, are cruel. Sometimes you're mean just to be mean. He didn't stop there though. He wanted to understand everything. It was sort of like how he'd been with the bird. The idea of normalcy had been fascinating to him. A friend falls and bumps his knee. You comfort him with a band-aid and a kiss on the scrape. An older kid calls you mean things. You're allowed to call her mean things back, or run crying to your mom, and she'll give you a hug and a little treat. Pete incorporated all of it into his day-to-day interactions. The less he stood out, the less the other kids bothered him. and the more he was left alone. Not as an outcast, just as Pete. Outcasts are kids that are picked on, or pulled aside by teachers, or turned into the pity friend. Pete wasn't interested in any of that. Pete just wanted to be all by himself. Other people, after a certain point, are just boring. That had changed when he'd first gotten on the train to Hogwarts and randomly picked a compartment. James Potter had taken one look at 11-year-old Pete and had somehow seen right through the assorted attributes and actions and expressions stolen from other people and had seen Pete, real one. The one that was born without a moral compass, but figured that it would make more sense to make one and stick with it than to forego morality entirely. The one that didn't need friends, but maybe he wouldn't altogether mind one or two, or three, just so long as they can help to keep him from dying of boredom. Through sheer determination and bullheadedness, James had managed to pull Pete into the Marauders, where, for the first time in his life, Pete felt like he fit in without having to try. Even better, they were always down for a little, or a lot of, thrill-seeking. That is to say, they're Peter's type of people. Wormtail is broken out of his reverie by the sudden sense of something looming over him. He doesn't bother turning around, he just transforms. When your animagus form is as small as a rat, an adolescent one too, he hasn't been an animagus long enough for his animal form to grow up. You learn to transform fast. You learn to transform first, ask questions later. The cat meows petulantly from where it's latched onto Peter's leg. Off, Peter says, prying the cat off, one claw at a time. The cat meows again, but does release his leg. Peter crouches down, holding a hand out for the cat to sniff. You are so ugly, Peter declares. Not in a bad way. You pull it off really well, actually. The cat sniffs his fingers hesitantly, then gives them a lick. Yeah, we get it. Rats taste delicious, Peter says, scratching the cat's head. He makes it a point to befriend the cats at the castle, just in case. The hope is that the friendship will transfer to Wormy. The next few days, Peter finds that his secret diabolical plan to get the cat to like him has worked too well. Pete, Sirius says, if your cat steals my spot in Remus's lap one more time, not my cat, Peter says, rolling his eyes. Not your spot, Remus splutters, face bright red. James, behind and out of sight of the two now arguing boys, mimes gagging. Harry, who's sitting and playing a card game with him, bursts into silent laughter. Crookshanks, come here, Hermione calls, not looking up from the book she's holding up. She looks over at Ron. Done? Done, Ron agrees from where he's sitting right next to her. Hermione nods and turns the page, and the two go back to reading. If those two don't end up together by the time they graduate, Peter will break into Dumbledore's office, steal the Sorting Hat, and eat it. Crookshanks does hop down, but he makes his way over to where Peter is sitting instead of over to his actual owner, and jumps up on him and said, Should have called you Catnip, Wormy, Sirius says to Peter. Sirius has now draped himself over Remus, who was pretending not to notice or care. Peter shrugs. Better than Whiskers, he says, absently playing with Crookshanks' tail. Fuck off, Sirius says. Whiskers was a great name. Peter doesn't bother to respond. What is with those nicknames? Ron asks. I mean, Moony is obvious, but the others? What do you mean Moony is obvious? Sirius asks, sitting up straight and staring at Ron with narrowed eyes. Remus has gone stiff and pale, and James has a worried expression on his face. Right. People knowing about the werewolf thing is bad, and Peter should be worried about his friend here. He puts his best confused and hurt expression on, and looks over to where Ron is sitting. Everyone knows Professor Lupin is a werewolf, Hermione says, waving her hand dismissively. It's the worst kept secret in all of Hogwarts. Harry and Ron nod in earnest. What does that have to do with Remus? Peter asks, now going for baffled innocence. Hermione levels a flat stare at him. Ah well, it'd have been worth a shot. You can't tell anyone, James says, looking at Harry. Duh, Harry says, laying down a card. If it gets out, publicly, we lose the best defense teacher we've ever had, Ron adds. Right, we're not stupid, Harry continues, and we three especially know how to keep a secret. You, Remus says hoarsely, then licks his lips. You're not scared? Harry, Hermione, and Ron all turn to look at him incredulously. Mate, Ron says, I can promise you that we have dealt with worse than a teenage werewolf. Hell, we've dealt with worse than an adult werewolf. For some reason, James looks queasy. Peter blinks, then narrows his eyes as he pets Crookshanks's long fur. It looks like James knows something they don't. You don't get it, Remus decides, trying ineffectively to push Sirius off so he can sit up straight. A werewolf is worse than a basilisk? Harry cuts in. There's a moment of stunned silence. Sorry, Remus says, swallowing hard. Did you just say a basilisk? Yeah, Ron says, squeezing Hermione's shoulders reassuringly. The girl seems to have shrunk in on herself a bit. Ron nods over at Harry, who rolls his eyes. Harry pulls his right arm out of the sleeve of his robe, then rolls the sleeve of his shirt up, revealing a sickle-sized scar just above his elbow. Ta-da, he says flatly. Basilisk. It is hard to surprise Peter, but not impossible. Liar, you'd be dead, Peter says flatly. He's dropped his axe because he genuinely cannot believe that the scrawny kid before him has been bitten by a basilisk. Had a phoenix handy, Harry says, slipping his arm back into his robe sleeve. Don't worry about it. I'm a little worried about it, Sirius squeaks. Is it still around? Of course not, Hermione scoffs. Yeah, thanks to that absolute madman over there, Ron adds, jerking its head towards Harry. How do you think I got the scar? Harry asks, grinning crookedly. Pretty hard to stab a giant snake through the roof of the mouth without getting an armful of fang. Second thought, Harry taking off Lily might not be such a good thing after all. How is he still alive? Whatever, that's not Peter's problem. Let's stop talking about this, James cuts in. He really looks sick now. I don't... Ugh. Yeah, we're done. Sorry, Harry says sheepishly. We're absolutely talking about this some more later, Sirius stage whispers to Harry. Harry laughs and nods. James shakes his head, but doesn't say anything more. That night is yet another sleepless night for Peter, although there's no specific reason for it this time. Wormtail scurries across the cold stone floor, relishing in the novelty of just being able to run around. He almost runs right into Crookshanks, who peers at the suddenly frozen rat with his huge luminous yellow eyes. Wormtail is about to transform, but something about the cat's easy body language stops him. Crookshanks slowly reaches his squashed snout down to Wormy's level, then licks a stripe up his head. Wormtail shakes it off, then scratches at his whiskers. Crookshanks turns around and takes a couple steps, then turns back and looks at Wormtail. He meows. Wormy has no idea what's happening, but he's not about to turn down the cat's invitation to go on an adventure. He's not walking, though. Instead, he bounds up to the creature, crouches down, tenses up, and then springs, landing as gracefully as possible on the startled cat. Shanks meows indignantly and poofs up a bit, but Wormy has his paws knotted in the cat's long orange fur already. Crookshanks could shake him if he really wanted to, but Wormy bets the cat doesn't actually care all that much. Sure enough, after a moment, Crookshanks seems to decide it's more trouble than it's worth to lay down and roll over, so he just starts to walk, Wormy in tow. Wormy's little rat heart is nearly beating right out of his chest as the cat heads straight for the common room window. He's never been one for heights. That said, Wormy pretty much asked for this. He's certainly not going to back down now. Okay, end of chapter 9. That one's fun. Oh, I love Peter's characterization in this fic so much. Kinda because it gives a reason for his actions. I don't know, I just find it really fun. Hope you enjoyed. Tell me what you think about this fic in the comments, because I think it's really funny, but also really dark. I did not realize there was so many dark moments. I'm like, oh, it's not just a crack fic, it's also really heavy. Oh well. If you're enjoying this, leave a comment, leave a like. I'd appreciate it. And I get excited when I see a whole bunch of people watch the video. Like, that's crazy too. Okay, Bye bye.